welcome back to the Mom Life Community Podcast. I'm Erin, joined by Braxton, and we are continuing in our summer book series, part 3 now of Loving the Little Years, Motherhood in the Trenches. We are covering chapters 7 through 9, and there's a lot to talk about. And I was thinking about, how we're doing this in the summer, and I feel like summer, a lot like Christmas time, there can be a lot of like nostalgia attached to summer and remembering about summer days of the past. So I thought a fun thing to share before we get started would be, Braxton, do you have a favorite summer memory from your childhood?
Yeah, and I have 2 that are actually tied, and I can't choose between the 2 of them. My grandparents had a very, very remote cabin up in the mountains of North Carolina, and my birthday's in May, we would always go for my birthday. I would always be able to take as many friends as could fit in the car, and we would literally be in the woods. I don't know how we didn't die of tick bites. We were just in the woods 24/7, and my grandfather would make us homemade ice cream with his little turner. It was just complete, you can't believe people could live like that. And it was just my favorite place on earth. And they have both passed on from now, and I will probably never, ever go back to that cabin. But it was my favorite place as a child, as a teenager, even as a young adult. You were just out in the middle of nature. Like, there's a waterfall. We would put the watermelon in the creek that was so cold, it would keep the watermelon cold. It was like best place on the world. Second, and then to go into society, my family always went to Hilton Head Island, which is an amazing place in South Carolina. If you're ever down here, just skip Myrtle Beach and just come straight on down to Hilton Head. It's right on top of Savannah. It's just a great place to go to the beach, and my parents actually retired there, so we get to go to Hilton Head and stay with them when we go. And I love the places that I went as a kid. I get to take my kids now to the same beach. So I have very, very fond memories of Hilton Head and the mountain cabin. What about you?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind for me was, so I grew up a big family, one of 7, but we didn't have a pool. And so whenever I was at a friend's house, or we would often go to my great aunt and uncle's house, I just wanted to swim in the pool. I didn't care what else we did, as long as we had pool time. I was content. So honestly, I just think about all of my times in the pools, because
Cool.
that's just what I wanted to do, because I didn't have it. And now, my kids, we don't have a pool. We have water slides and we have sprinklers, and we make the best of them. But they absolutely love going into the lakes, going into friends' pools. And
the lakes in Medford were that was like a childhood of my own. My kids were so little when we were there, and it was, you can't even write it. You can't write that into someone's childhood. It was just where we were, and we were at our beach lake every single day in the summer, every single day. It was perfect childhood for them. So it was fun. Very fun.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to head into chapters 7, 8, and 9. And I have to say, these might be my favorite chapters, although I might remember as we go through the rest that maybe another one was my favorite, but I don't know. I think that these kind of are. And so we're starting with chapter 7. It's titled Thanksters and Cranksters. And I really think it can kind of be summed up in, she starts the book out with this being a source of encouragement for a mother's attitude, or a sorting out of a mother's attitude. And I think that this chapter serves as furthering of that point where, we can easily look at our kids in a situation. She details her kids in the car and how cranky her kids can get in the car. I think we can all relate to that. But she talks about how her kids can have a sour attitude at times, and that those are called cranksters, and that she can kind of rebuttal them with, man, it's just too bad. If there's a sibling argument happening, she can rebuttal with, it's just so too bad that you don't have any brothers or sisters to hang out with every day. Or, it's just too bad you don't have legs to walk. And so she said oftentimes her kids will laugh at a response like that. I think my kids might be a little more, Mom, I don't think they would really want to hear that. But, she says that there's just abundant things to be thankful for that might not be on our radar when, okay, so as a mom, we might be dealing with a headache. We might be dealing with, a lack of sleep. But where's our heart at? And are we adopting an attitude of gratitude for the dishes that are in the sink because we were able to feed our family that night? Are we thankful for something you always told me, Braxton, I think at our mom's table was pick up the socks on the side of the bed, because guess what? You have a husband
Yep.
that you can pick up his socks.
Yep. Yep.
It's really a shifting of a mindset. And, 1 Thessalonians 5:18 reminds us to give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. And I'm just reminded of, we talked about this in previous episodes, that the mom can really set the tone of the home. And while it might take a little bit of time, if maybe you're and this can kind of be, I feel like, passed on from previous generations. If you grew up in a family of complainers, it might be easy to fall into that. And so it will take intentionality, but I really believe that if we shift our attitude to being grateful and putting that on display for our kids, it might take some time, but I really think that you would see the fruit of that as a mom, that your kids would do the same.
And I think it's actually true, because, when I think about my teenagers, 13 and 15, they don't complain. And so I've been able to see the fruit of what I did. I did this chapter when they were little, and now in their teenage years, they're allowed to vent and get it off their chest. I'm okay. Like, I need to do that too. We need to, maybe there's a teacher that's on their nerves, or a test that just wasn't fair, or a friend did something. I let them get off their chest, and then I let them take a breath, and we go right in. All right. Are you thankful you're in a Christian school? Yes. Are you thankful that you have an education? Once you get started, I can give them 10 things back to back to back. And I'm training them. Aren't you glad that you actually have multiple siblings that you can hang out with, multiple personalities that you get to deal with? Aren't you thankful you have a difficult teacher that you're going to learn how to deal with, because you might have a boss one day, or a neighbor next door, or a brother-in-law or sister-in-law that drives you crazy, but you've already learned how to be patient because God taught you, where you were in 7th grade, how to be patient in this class. You can take everything and be thankful for it. And it is a choice. And we as moms have to choose to be grateful. I love it. She said, I know this is painfully obvious, but when our children are fussing, the antidote for them is gratitude. Exactly what you were thinking. I thank God for the clothes hampers that are full, because that means I have clothes and we have money to buy clothes, and then I have a washer and a dryer to close them. I thank God for running the dishwasher and emptying it twice a day, because that means I've fed my family and I've sat at the table and we've looked at each other. I thank God for the countless trips to school in the summer, for sports practices. I mean, I'm there 3 different times a day, because that means I have healthy kids that can do sports. Sometimes I even thank God for fights with my husband, because those fights make me pray more. And that even the hard things we can thank God for, because he is producing endurance and patience in us, and the fruit of the Spirit. So we have to teach our kids. And when we're at dinner, Nick will ask one of our kids to pray, and I'll always say, thank you for, just to remind them, thank you, God, for this and this and this. Not, I hope we have a great day, and I hope we have a great week, and I hope and I pray that we have fun at camp this week. It's like, I thank you for this, and I thank you for this, and I thank you for this, because we need to be grateful to God too. So I mentioned this in the book talk at the very beginning, but 10,000 reasons, is that it? Why do I always get it wrong? Ann Voskamp, 10,000. She, if a listener needs a big dose of tweaking, you need to get that book, because practice makes permanent. And so when you practice generosity, it becomes and when you practice gratitude, it becomes a habit, and you just keep doing it, because that's what that's what you're becoming. And the very end, her very last question is, aren't you blessed? We want our kids to know that they're blessed. And until we show it in front of them and show it to them and make them think and say it, they might not see how blessed they are. My oldest was able to go to Dominican Republic last summer, and I've just been waiting for a trip for all of them where you get out of privileged life. And she came home and she said, Mom, I mean, it changed her world.
Mm.
And she said, Mom, I helped a mom wash her clothes and floor cleaner. And she told me that sentence in different times, months and months and months apart from her. You can't teach gratitude like that. I mean, once they see it, it's just, you can't get away from it. So teaching our kids little and then letting them see it when they get older is just a habit. Yes, thank God in all circumstances, especially if you have a big family. Thank Him for all those children you prayed for. Thank Him for that husband you prayed for forever. You remember how long it took for you to get pregnant? Thank God for those children that you have. And this is the work we have to do. Thank Him for all the things that we get to do. It's good.
Yeah. And I like how she wrapped it too. And we were definitely on the same wavelength there. How she put a notion at the end of the chapter to practice this gratitude outside of like a cranky moment or outside of a spat happening. And I wrote a great way to do this is prayer, just like you said. You know, my son, I often pray. I pray every day before they get out of the car at school, and sometimes I am a little more. What's the word? I kind of really firmly ask, can someone pray today? Can someone, I said the other day, it would really bless me if one of you prayed today. And so anyway, my oldest had prayed, one day recently and thanked God for the rain because it was watering the trees and the plants. And, you know, so I'm grateful. I can see that, you know, what might make something a bad day is getting a little bit of a different, you know, shift. So, yeah, one of those things that takes intentionality and practice and really evaluating if it's something that you're struggling with as a mom to be grateful because the workload is a lot. And she's going to talk about that more in the next chapter, but the workload is a lot at times and being grateful. So
one last story. I tend to be the most grateful person in our family. I'm just saying that out loud. And we were at a track meet in this past spring, and track meets are like 5 hours long. Like it just develops patience in you. And I love, my husband had been working long day, and he came in and he sat down and he said, I love coming here. He said, one of my patients today reminded me, we don't have this many years with our kids to watch them run track. I want to enjoy every single time that we have to come out here and sit in the heat and be out here because it's not going to be that long. Track meets are awesome. And I was like, track meets are awesome. It's just a good, like, we can sharpen each other and remind each other, like, this is what we have to be grateful for, you know, even for our long bench, because we have healthy kids that we can, in a school that has a team and is teaching my kids great things. And there's so many things. But once you start, 10,000 reasons, 10,000 gifts, 10,000 gifts, 10,000 gifts. That book will help you train your mind to be grateful. It's a book that I am just like eternally grateful that I went through myself. So, yeah.
So good. What about chapter 8?
Okay. Chapter 8 is called Watch Your Language. This is, I'll read one paragraph. She's basically talking about making sure your kids watch their language, but as adults, we need to not hold on to a certain word. And her certain word was overwhelmed. To take this as kind of like your, how you can just be done because of this one word that you can kind of like idolize. This is a paragraph about words. My husband dealt with this problem about little kids using big kid language too early by talking to the kids about the nature of words. Words are tools, and some of them are like big kitchen knives. You have to be big enough to use them. If little kids start saying stupid or idiot, by the way, in our home, we said PID for stupid. We would say PID. The older ones who knew how to spell knew what we were talking about, but we didn't have to use the actual word with the little ones. So we said PID for a long time. That was our code word for a long time. If they start saying stupid or idiot, it's like they're playing with the knives. They're not big enough to control what they cut. They will soon start hurting each other and cutting their own fingers. So these words are just like the knives. They are a no touch, but they may watch and listen now so they can learn how to use them later. Of course, if you're using these words to cut down your husband or your friends, then you need to stop too. They can be just as destructive to a grown person. So I have seen when there's stages of parenting. So physical parenting is first. You have to like do the diapers, do the feeding, do the washing, all the things. And then you turn into emotional parenting. And then spiritual parenting is kind of through it, but it's really older. Spiritual parenting is like where I am now. Like we're really starting to talk about really deep spiritual things and their walk with Jesus. And then there's sexual parenting also. So during all of these things, you need to be able to step back and do the job that you need to do. So I love what she said for the physical parenting part. When I was there, I used music. I would let music play in my whole house, and that helped me get through the hard with all the tiny people. And she said there's a 20-minute rule. Set a timer and get as much done in 20 minutes as you can. And when you look around, you're like, wow, I did 2 loads of laundry. I took them upstairs. I was able to start loading the dishwasher and the timer beeped. Like you can get a lot done if you can break it down into smaller pieces. So I totally did this when my kids were little. Emotional parenting, where I am kind of with my elementary and middle school, is finding the time to chat with each kid. So that could be a walk after dinner. It could be a Starbucks trip, or it could be in the car as we go to the sporting events, like back and forth. Like some of our cross country meets are an hour and a half away. That's a lot of emotional parenting talking. And then spiritual parenting, we used Seeds Family Worship. I would like burn the CD. I mean, you can't even do that anymore, can you? I would burn the CD, and it was pure scripture. You can find them on YouTube. You can buy their CDs. Their stuff's amazing. They're on Amazon. Seeds Family Worship. I would sing scripture with my kids, and we'd be in the car, and they'd be like, "Mom, what did they just say?" And we would have like theology 101 right then and there. I was able to unpack that particular verse for whatever it meant. It meant I knew what it meant. They had no idea what some of this like scripture, this kind of biblical churchy talk was. And then we did the Jesus Storybook Bible. Like we've probably read it through 6 times, cover to cover. So those are my 2 good tools for new moms or young moms as you go through those. And then sexual parenting, I was able to kind of talk through my peers, my friends. Okay, how do we want to talk about it? What do we want to talk? I was able to kind of dialogue with them ahead of time. And then when I was ready, like kid was going into 5th grade or like middle of 5th grade, we went to Starbucks, had big long talk. I mean, we can have episodes on this, but having the conversation open, because that's coming, and you need to be open and ready to talk about how sex is so wonderful and God made it so good and our bodies are wonderful. You need to be able to talk about that kind of stuff before you're ready for it. But all of these things, we need to be productive in our parenting. God has given us work to do. And so my current job is to help produce teenagers and young adults that will listen to God and will be responsible in their decisions. And ultimately, I want to be friends with them when they're grown. So my physical parenting was different back then. Like they need to learn how to do these things for themselves. They need to be responsible. They need to help the family without whining and complaining. But now our goals as our kids get older are different. So I am helping produce teenagers and young adults who stop listening to me as their authority and start listening to God as their authority and start making their own decisions and be responsible for what they're doing. So whatever you're doing, do it as unto the Lord, not for man, whether that's the dishes, doing the clothes, cleaning out traps in the shower. I did that today and it's disgusting. And I did it as unto the Lord. I just do it twice a year. So do your work well and thank God for the work that he has given us.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot, but I had a lot for this.
Okay. Well, and and you're right, like how parenting shifts and evolves, and things that are lessons are take on a totally different, approach when you have teenagers. But we're very much in the in the realm of of potty words and
Really?
when to say, because some words we say and it's very appropriate for a certain situation, where in other, times it's just not. And so we are very much in that black and white almost um stage. And so I just like how, just like she used the horses and the reins to illustrate emotions and reining in emotions, I love how she used knives, because I think that's such a good way to show kids that these are something that, yes, we use them. Yes, they have a purpose. We need to use knives. We need to use words. But what happens when we start throwing the knives in the air? What could happen? Someone could get extremely hurt. And so, they can watch an adult use a very big knife to cut a watermelon, but that's not something that they're going to do just yet. And so I think it's so good to have a tool like this when you feel like you've said it over and over. That's potty talk. That's potty. When do we say that? We say that in the bathroom. You feel like you say the same thing over and over. And it takes sometimes an illustration like this. I just love that she equips moms with this in order to get a point across. And then I just love her writing, because she can take one point and then apply it to us as moms, and just the power that words have. And I so relate to her feeling overwhelmed, and that there is a real, just a real power there if we focus on being, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. I'm overwhelmed. And she said, actually, I may be overwhelmed, but I'm not going to say I am overwhelmed. And I think that she also gives the illustration of, there's work before us. There's work to be done. But think about a child. If he has a room to clean that's upside down, there's a child that could put his head down and get to work and get the work done. Or there's a child that starts the work and then falls on the ground crying, whining, complaining that he has to do this work. The work doesn't change, but certainly how long it takes you would change, how just how strenuous it's going to feel. And God gave us our children. God gave us our things. He's blessed us, and we can either be the kid that's flailing on the floor complaining about it, or we can just put our head down and get it done.
And our attitude matters. And I think that's, if we care about our attitude and how our kids are working or helping, God cares about our attitude too, in the work that he gave us. Yeah. Our attitudes are big.
Yeah. And I mean, Ephesians 4, 20 through 24, I'll just paraphrase. We know Christ. We've accepted him as our savior. And so we're supposed to put off our old self and be renewed in the spirit of our mind, putting on the new self, which is created like God. And I'm paraphrasing all of that. But in God, there's righteousness and there's holiness. And this is one of those situations where you might just need accountability in it. You might just need to share with your husband, I'm intentionally not going to say I'm overwhelmed. I'm not going to say it anymore, because when I say it, I feel it even worse. So maybe you need your husband, maybe you need your mentor, maybe you need a friend or a sister. But these are one of those situations where it's so good to have someone linking arms with you to shift that mindset. Yeah.
This is a first kid and last kid problem too, when it comes to language, because we've got one in high school and one in 4th grade. And so we just say the word is inappropriate for the little one. It's inappropriate. She's older than you. It's inappropriate. Funniest story ever. In kindergarten, my littlest was playing concentration camp at recess. The reason she was playing concentration camp is because we were listening to The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom audiobook. And you have to read The Hiding Place if you ever have this. I was on a World War II kick. And so my kids were listening to juvenile novels about World War II. And here she was playing concentration camp, and the kids were playing and the thing. And the kindergarten was like, what's going on? And I'm like, it's Corrie ten Boom. I'm so sorry. So we have the funniest stories about her. Like, we'll say, Nikki, don't bring this up at prayer time at school. Don't talk about this at recess. Like, we tell her she's listening to it because she's the youngest, but there are other kids in her class who are the oldest, and they will have never heard of this before. I mean, it's all the time. An oldest kid, youngest kid problem as your kids get older is just, they're going to be exposed to things, even good things. They're just more grown up things from their older siblings, and there's nothing What are you
Mhm.
gonna do about it?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, chapter. Do you have anything else?
No, that's so good. And I will say one of my favorite things about doing this book, I'm sure you can relate to doing this when you've done this book over the years, that certain chapters that did not stick out or mean as much
Oh
mean
yeah.
so much more now. And chapter 9 is such a big one for me. It's called To the Fifth Power. I have 5 kids now. And oh, when she talks about the bulk effect, which, to kind of paraphrase what she talks about, she gives an example. So the point of it is, when you have more kids, it doesn't just, oh, I have one more mouth to feed. It just kind of everything exponentially just increases by nature. And so she talks about the scenario of getting ready for church, and one child is missing a shoe, and the other kid, you told him to brush his teeth and he decides to play instead, and you're rocking the baby, and your coffee is getting cold on the counter, and you notice the child who picked up a magnadoodle instead of doing whatever you told him to do, and you kind of just unleash all of your stress on that one child. And how that's it's wrong to do that, and you need to acknowledge that you had a part in maybe time management, or you didn't could have found that lost shoe last night. Just the stress of that whole situation, you decided to point it all in a direction that it shouldn't have gone. And I just relate, because you are in it. You could be in a stressful situation where there's all these little things that really aren't that big of a deal. But when you have as many kids, um, as maybe I have, it feels like it adds up. And I just love how she said that when you do that, when you ultimately end up putting your stress, and this could be a mom with one, where you have stress from work, or you have stress in your marriage, or stress just coming from something, and you end up, your child does one thing that probably didn't warrant such a big reaction, and it can pour out. And I like that she says on page 48, she says, your children are not a situation, they are individuals, and disciplining an individual for collective situation is a great way to alienate your children. That's really
Yeah.
powerful. It's not only unjust and unkind, but it is untrue to the gospel. Christ takes our sins. He does not load us down with someone else's. He sees what we have done and takes it from us and bears it with him to the cross. What you just did was toss your burden of guilt onto a child to have her carry it. Well, what is she supposed to do with it other than be beaten down by it?
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
I think a lot of times I think she's trying to say we need to be the adult. We need to be the adult. And if stuff like that happens, we need to take the blame for it and then look ahead, be the adult, plan ahead. And like my quote is, stuff happens and throw up happens at 2 a.m. So I'm a very laid back person. I think this chapter is good. It doesn't necessarily quite apply because we don't tend to like blow up over something. We just are late. I mean, if we're late, we're late. Like other personalities, that can be a big trigger. Like I see some personalities, like going back to personalities last week, can be more of a trigger for others. We just kind of tend to take it as it goes. But I have learned, like, my washer and dryer are always empty because throw up happens at 2 a.m. You need the washer empty. My dishwasher is always, as soon as it's done, I empty it as soon as I can because dinner's coming. We have to run it twice a day. I have supplies in my car and in my classroom, like currently extra socks, extra shoes, extra clothes. We have baby wipes in our car all the time. We kept an IKEA potty in my trunk for 9 years. I mean, everyone was potty trained. But there might be a time that you are stuck in traffic and somebody gonna need a potty. And sometimes it was me in car line. Like you just have to be prepared ahead of time. We have plastic bags for throw up all the time in my car. And we even, like, the kids even yesterday were like, hey, can I have the emergency water? I have 2 waters that are always in the middle of the car. I try to keep them full because we will be somewhere, even as grown children. And they're like, I need water. I'm dying. Emergency waters are in the car. So I think this takes patience. And I think the longer you mother, I think you can kind of chill out a little, because there's always going to be chaos. Like I have learned not to tell my kids about birthday parties that I have said yes to, because throw up happens. And if someone throws up the day before, they're not going to go. Like, you can control some of it, but you can't control the chaos. Like, we have 6 in our family plus 2 grandparents. Like, stuff happens, and you have to be able to just roll it off your back, take a deep breath, and like, don't blame the kids. Like, really, you forgot your socks? Like, okay, I've got some in my classroom, let's go. Like, you do need to hold them accountable. As they get older, my kids are way more responsible, because they've learned they have to pack their own lunches. They have to pack their own backpacks. They have to do their own homework. They have to, like, take a picture of their homework and turn it in. Like, I'm out of the situation. If they're going to miss a practice, they have to text their coach they're missing practice, not me. So as your kids get older, you give them more responsibility, and they do it super duper well. And I have a great story about just like pure chaos and how hysterical it was. So Nick and I, 4 kids, we go mountain biking. This was a couple months ago. Probably the most clear memory of all of us is this one moment. So we go mountain biking. On the way, we're 35 minutes away. The Jeep's doors are off and the Jeep top is back. Mm-hmm. On the way there, I happened to look at the weather, and I said in my head, oh no, there was a massive red coming through. It was going to pass right over us. Well, at this point, we are too far in the situation to back out of biking at this point. So Nick was like, is there rain coming? And I was like, yes, but I think we're going to be able to bike one loop, get back in the car, and get home before it passes over. No. We are in the middle of our first loop. We are in the woods, and it turns pitch black. The wind starts whipping, and I'm like, let's go. All 6 of us are, I thought the 9-year-old's legs were going to fall off. Her legs were burning. We were pedaling as fast as we could. We pedal fast. We come into the clearing. We get out of the woods. The rain starts. I'm pretty sure the wind is, you just know the storm is coming. We can have some pretty massive storms in upstate South Carolina. So we bike to the car. We throw all the 6 bikes, got to get 6 bikes on the car. We're wrapping them up. And I think it starts raining as soon as we shut the door. And I'm not talking rain. I'm talking torrential downpour. So we're speaking of that. We don't have any doors on the side of the Jeep. It's completely open. So the kids I did bring 4 beach towels, because I knew the weather was coming. I just didn't know when it was going to hit us. So they are covered in beach towels in the back. The 9-year-old is wrapped in 2 beach towels laying down in the back. The wind was whipping rain sideways on us. Nick and I were just laughing. Like, you could do nothing but laugh. Like, we've all said we thought we were going to die, or this was going to be the best moment of our lives. And it ended up the best moment of our lives, because we didn't die. Like, we did not know if the wind was going to take Jeep off. So we had a 35-minute drive in the red rain. Like, we never got out of it. We were all the way home, and we were just like, is the littlest dead? Okay, littlest is not dead. Just keep going. It was one of those moments, pure chaos. And we could have, like, pointed fingers and blamed. And, like, at that point, you're just like, okay, that was the best moment of our lives. It was absolutely hysteria and total chaos. And we just kind of rolled with it. So sometimes you're going to hit things like that. Like, stuff's going to happen when you vacation. Stuff always happens. We have to be a people and parents and spouses who just let it roll off your back, take the hit, whatever responsibility you have for it, and then teach your kids through it. Like, okay, life lesson, guys. Always bring beach towels and look at the weather before you go. Like, there's a life lesson to be learned. And at the end of the day, like, Nico say, do you remember that time I almost died in the back of the Jeep? And we were like, yes, we did. It was just so memorable. So anyways, chaos happens, and we need to be the adults, I think, at the end of the day.
And to remember, children are a blessing. I think that that's something too. I've fallen off saying, but that I want to get back on, that when we go into a store, because we are a lot of people notice. They just do. I don't know. I don't know if it's the more you have or that I have all these boys, like whatever the case is, people notice. And I think about that all the time, but I'm sure that the kids don't. But I was really good about telling them before we would go into a store, let's show people that kids are a blessing. Let's show them how awesome kids are. And I haven't done that lately. And I think that this is a good reminder to be doing that again, especially as now it's summer and we're all going to be out in the store together. It's not going to be as easy to go by myself anymore. So yeah, that's good. Stuff will happen. And you know, they're in a big family. They just are. And there's so much good to that. And I don't want that to get lost in the hustle and bustle of life. So I'm excited that summer's going to slow it down a little though. So.
Yep.
All right.
Be home. All right. Next time.
Yeah. So we're still tracking for 3. So 10, 11, and 12. For next time.
Okay.
Yeah. Braxton, thank you as always. I just love your stories, love your wisdom, and I love that you get to show us a perspective of this is what it's like to have teenagers and almost drivers, and life gets a little different.
Happy summer, everybody.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
See ya.